Okay, so I thought we'd tell Luke's birth story. So, it all started, so yesterday, so I had my first contraction that I noticed at 5:13 in the morning. And I had one. And I remember standing up and I was like, oh, I'll like pace around. This will be so much fun. So then I had like maybe one or two more. And then the first one that I timed on my contraction app was at 5:32 a.m. And you would like woken up at 5:30 and you walked out in the living room and you were like, what you doing? I'm like, I think I'm having contractions. I think we're gonna have the baby today.
I was like, okay,
like,
we're gonna have one today.
And I'm like, we'll see. Because I remember thinking, you're like, should I go to work? I was like, well, let me see how the next 45 minutes are. Because you usually leave for work at 6:15. So 5:32 is the first one that I time. And then I have a couple more. And I text my sister. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's go like take a shower. We'll get ready. So you hop in the shower. And so now it's like 5:50. And so I hop in the shower to rinse off really fast. And then they start like only being like a minute or two apart, like really fast. So you get out of the shower. So then I get out and I start brushing my teeth and I'm like leaning over because it hurts so much. And then my water breaks in the bathroom.
Oh.
And then
it was like, kind of go time after that.
Then you're like getting dressed and I'm like, Shawn, I think my water just broke. I'm like, these are really intense. I think we need to go to the hospital like immediately. And you're like, okay, I'm going to kick it into high gear.
And I had like a little to-go list of everything that we had the bag packed for the hospital, but there was like 5 or 6 everyday things like our toothbrush.
Yeah. So
and a couple other odds and ends. And I'm just throwing stuff into the suitcase.
You're grabbing stuff. And I'm like leaning over. I'm like, whoa, we got to go fast. So then I start like getting dressed. And I had you grab like one of Josh's diapers. I put in the pants.
Oh yeah, for you.
Because my water broke. So now it's like 6. And so I'm like on my hands and knees in the living room. And my contractions are so close together and so intense. And so I'm like, you need to call my sister, Nicole, lives next door. She's our next door neighbor. And so I'm like, you need to call Nicole and get her back here like immediately.
Yeah.
And then at this point, I'm like, we just need to go. Like, she knows to come. So we're pulling. Oh, hi, Lou. So we're pulling down I called Nicole at 6:05. And her garage opens. And she's like, are you guys leaving? I'm like, yeah, we got to go now.
We got to go.
And she's like, okay. So that's 6:05. So now we're driving. I have to, like, get unbuckled. I'm on my hands and knees in the seat, like, turned around. And I'm like, oh, my God, Shawn, I think we're going to have this baby in the car. It was so intense.
I'm doing, like, 95 on the freeway.
Driving like 100 miles an hour, running red lights.
But we're only a couple exits from the hospital.
We live like 10 minutes maybe.
So we got to the hospital and we had to park on the 3rd floor of the parking garage because emergency parking was all blocked off by like COVID tents and you had to go around. So I'm like, okay, keep going up. Luckily there was no traffic and not a lot of cars at the hospital.
Yeah, so we got here super fast.
We parked right by the elevator and you thought you were going to have the baby. I get out
and I'm like, Shawn, I don't think I can make it into the hospital. I don't think I'm going to make it in the hospital. I was like, it seemed so far. I'm like, there's no way. And I'm like, okay. And you just ran out and you pressed the elevator button. And we got in the elevator. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep taking steps. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And
I ran and got you a wheelchair.
Screaming.
Yeah. Oh, you were screaming bloody murder.
Screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm in so much pain. And I'm like, I just hope we make it in the hospital. So then we get downstairs. And I think you ran ahead to the entrance.
So right now it's about 6:10, 6:12. And your first contraction was at 5:15.
Yeah.
So it's been only an hour.
Not even
and we're already on the doorstep of...
And so Shawn runs in and you're like, you get me a wheelchair.
Yeah.
At the like front security because they have all this like COVID scanning. So you're like, my wife's having a baby. She needs a wheelchair.
So we need right now. Let's go. And they came and they were really nice. And they got you in the wheelchair and they just started hustling you up to the labor.
So I sit in the wheelchair and I was like, okay, I can sit. So I don't even know who, was it a girl even? I don't even know who's pushing. She's running so fast, pushing me. Running. I am screaming like it's a movie. I'm like, and she's like, just breathe. I don't even think she's a doctor. I think she was just a security guard or something. So she's pushing me in the elevator and I'm like screaming. So then we get upstairs and we had called on the way to the hospital and I'm like, we're coming in. I'm in labor. I just gave them my number so they knew they were coming. And then I start screaming because my contractions are so bad. So I hand the phone to you. So I think they knew that like they had to hustle and be ready for me. So they just like pushed me through the hall straight into the delivery room. And like the doors were open and like all the nurses are ready. And then I'm just sitting there and one nurse looks at me and she's like, don't push, breathe through your mouth, pant like a dog. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I already feel like I'm gonna have this baby immediately. So I'm sitting on the bed. They're ripping my pants off and my shoes. And I'm just like sitting on the bed and she checks me right away. And she's like, okay, you're, I was a 7.5, I think she said, or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'd really like the epidural if I can get it. And like the nurses, there's like 4 nurses in there and they look at each other like, we'll see. Like, there may not be time, but it's okay. You can do this. And in my head, I'm like, oh no. So then I'm sitting there. It's maybe 5 minutes holding onto the bed rail.
You're still screaming
at the top of my lungs. It hurts so bad. I'm like, they were so back to back. I was in so much pain. I could barely catch my breath. At some point, they put an IV in me, and I'm like, that's good. Like, I know I need the IV for the epidural. And so then, I don't know, 5 minutes. I'm like, I feel like I need to push. I feel like I need to push.
And they're like, okay, go for it.
And so then I think she like checks me again, and she's like, okay, yeah, you're a 10. And I was like, oh my God.
You went from 7 to 10 in
I'm like,
30
I can't
seconds.
even like breathe. I'm in so much pain. But I'm like, okay. And so one nurse went like, okay, look at me. She like grabbed me. They're all wearing masks. I don't even know who these people are. She's like, you can do this. Just breathe. When you push, it's going to feel better. And then it's done. And I went, okay. And so then I'm like, I think I need to push. And then I just start like, my body starts pushing as fast. I can't even control it. And as soon as I start pushing, it doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah.
This pain stops. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Like, I can do this. Then I'm still on the sheets of the bed. They didn't even put down the drop cloth yet. And so then I'm just like pushing. And then they're like, good, just listen to your body. Your body knows what to do. I'm like, okay. And then at one point after like 2 pushes, they pull the like drop cloth under me. I'm not even in the stirrups. I'm just sitting on the bed. And then I mean, how long was I pushing?
I timed it. You were pushing for less than 8 minutes.
Like, from the time I got in the room.
And I remember when we had Ryan, it was hours. It was a few hours of like build up. And then this was just, so I'm awake, like, first contraction, hospital, push.
They're like, his head's, we can see his head. This was within like 2 or 3 minutes. And I'm like, okay, that's good. And I'm just like, ooh, and I'm just pushing it's so weird to feel it all because your body's like basically doing it for you, or at least it was for me. And so I'm just like pushing, and then I feel his head come out, and they're like, his head's out, that's the hardest part, you can do it, just like one more big push. I'm like, okay. And I'm just like pushing, and then they're like, look down, you can grab him if you want. And I can see him like out, and I'm like, I can't let go of these bed rails, but I can't wait to meet him if you can help him out. And then they just like pull him out, they put him right in my chest. So he was born at 6:32. So,
hey, buddy.
Hi, Luke. And I am like in shock. I cannot believe that just happened. It was so fast. It hurt so much. And I can't believe I did it with like no pain medicine or anything. So then he's like on my chest. And I thought that as soon as he was born, like the pain would totally stop. But it still like hurts, and I still have to do like the placenta, everything. So I'm like holding him, and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy to meet you. Like, we did it. You did so good. But at the same time, I'm like in so much pain. And so then we just like had the baby.
I did great.
The nurse just came in. I got my IV out. But so first contraction ever was at 5:13. He's born at 6:32. So it was like so super fast. Were you ever scared, Shawn?
Not really. No.
When we were driving, did you think we'd make it?
Yeah, well, the only time I got nervous was at the elevator. When you got out of the car, I was like, ooh, we got to go down 3 floors, then go into the building, and you're screaming. That was a little
when you were like
close
in the
for
room,
comfort.
When you were like, did you ever think I was going to get the epidural?
No. When you asked for it, I almost started laughing. I thought that the nurses were going to laugh
too. I really
too.
wanted it so bad. Were you impressed I did it?
I'm so proud of you. You did a really good job.
We did so good.
And now I got this little baby.
We got little Luke. But here's the funny thing. So after he's born, Shawn sends, because I text, so we had two family group text. I had a text going with my family and then a text going with your family. So I had told both, we're on our way to the hospital. I think I texted him at like 6:10 on the way to the hospital. I'm like, we're on our way to the hospital. Really intense. I'm screaming or something. And so then Shawn texts them right after Luke is born at like 6:40 or something. And you're like, baby boy's here. And they're all like, what? It's so funny looking through the text, like how fast all the timestamps
I was like, wait a minute. What?
What? And my mom's like, did you make it to the hospital?
We weren't gone from the house that long. I'm texting everybody going, baby's here.
I know.
So,
That's
yeah, he's
so
here.
Funny. But he's here, healthy. Did it. I definitely prefer the epidural.
But this one was easy.
But
quick and easy.
You can do it without the epidural if it was fast like this. I can't imagine a long labor with no epidural. Oh my gosh, there's no way. Mine was like maybe... It started really hurting at 5:50, and I only had to make it to 6:32, and I was ready to be like... I'm really... I don't want it, but I did it.
That was awesome. You did great.
I know.
So did this little guy.
Yeah, he's a pro. He just couldn't wait to come join us and play. So that is how we almost had a baby in the car. Like if there had been, we've been laughing. We're like, because this was all very early in the morning. It was still dark out, like 6 in the morning.
There was no traffic.
I was like, if this would have been
at
like 4 p.m., when there would have been like a little bit of traffic on the freeway, or even like people going to regular appointment time to the hospital.
There was only one traffic light, and it was red. I ran it.
Like if this was a busy
one
time,
red light.
We didn't have like I think from when I got in the hospital room to when he was out was like 8 or something minutes. Like we did not have a lot of time to spare, so it worked out. Or if you'd been at work, I don't think you would have made it home in time. You would have missed it. So it worked out so perfect. Also meant to be.
I'm Batman.
Yeah, you're the real hero here. Yeah. So that's how we got our Luke.
Woohoo!